Evening all, welcome to the Pyramid Podcast where three lads discuss all things English football pyramid. On today's episode, Haaland missing chances whilst everyone has him triple captained on FPL. We'll look at Arsenal's form pre and post the winter break. Salah's back for Liverpool and firing, but injuries for Curtis Jones, Jota and Nunes. Oliver Glasner's in finally at Palace. We'll review the key games from the EFL, including QPR winning the Pyramid Pod Cup against Bristol City and a rare loss for Leicester. And we'll finish with Lauro, who will talk us through Yeovil's weekend win versus Havant at Waterlooville, their midweek fixture tomorrow versus Western-super-Mare, and it's also his turn for a trivia question. I'm your host, Alex Murphy, and once again I'm joined by Tom Lawrence and hopefully soon Tom Gallagher. Lauro, start with Man City-Chelsea. So 1-1 in that game. You've spoken before about not being totally convinced with Man City this season. They just seemed to be a little bit missing. But one thing that was glaringly obvious at the weekend was that Erling Haaland wasn't in his normal ruthless self and missed some key opportunities there against Chelsea.
Yeah, I just think that goes to show the level that Erling Haaland has set. Like, it's a massive news story when he doesn't score. And although that on another day he probably would have had 2 or 3 goals that day, it also goes to show that without his goals, they're susceptible to dropping points, way more so than they have been in the last few seasons, in my opinion. And I've mentioned before, I think, obviously Kevin De Bruyne being injured for a lot of the season, but the loss particularly of players like Ilkay Gundogan and Riyad Mahrez, I'm not sure they've replaced their goals, specifically their goals or goal involvements. For instance, Doku looks like a really lively player. He's quick, he can beat a man, but his end product isn't quite there. Jack Grealish had probably his best season last season in a Man City shirt, but didn't really get the goals and assists. And I think it just goes to show that when Erling Haaland does miss his chances, all of a sudden you can drop 2 points, and 2 points at home, which is quite rare for Man City. So generally speaking, a point against Chelsea doesn't look like the end of the world, but this isn't the Chelsea of years gone by, and it's a game that they would have definitely earmarked as a maximum and hoping to keep up their title charge. So, of course, they're still bang in the hunt, and if they win the game in hand, they'll be second, but it's advantage for me to probably Liverpool and even Arsenal with their momentum at the moment. So, yeah, 2 points drop for sure for City, but Haaland will be back. It wouldn't surprise me if he scores a hat-trick tomorrow.
Yeah, just on Chelsea, I think you said a couple pods ago, actually, there might be some signs of kind of glimmers of hopes for Chelsea fans for the future with some of the players that they've got, all of their new signings being a year older for next season. They're now into a cup final. They're still in the FA Cup. They've picked up actually some points in against the big sides and had some decent performances, but seem to drop silly points. Do you think that there's just a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel for Chelsea with going to like the Etihad and picking up a point and looking quite dangerous in spells?
Yeah, there's definitely room for optimism, but like we've said before, when you have a very young assembled squad like they do, inconsistency is generally something that shows itself, and that's the exactly what you've just explained. They'll pick up points in games where you weren't expecting them to, and every now and again, like they did in the FA Cup against Aston Villa the other day, go and trounce someone, but then they'll go and lose 4-1 at home to Wolves, or then they'll go and drop points against a Bournemouth or someone like that. And that's the things you need to cut out if you're going to sustain. Again, maybe at the moment they're probably not even thinking about the title, but certainly a challenge for the top 4, which they're not going to get this season. So, consistency is something they need to build. But they've got loads of brilliant young players. We know Enzo Fernandez is going to be, or already is, a really good player. Cole Palmer is 10 times the player that I thought he was going to be, so fair play to him. And if they can get all these boys working in conjunction with the sort of ready-made products that they've got, like we know Raheem Sterling is, and like we're hoping probably, or Chelsea fans are hoping, the likes of Nkuku, and then maybe 1 or 2 more sensible additions in the summer, rather than either someone really young and expensive or really old and past it, then things will be looking brighter. But this season's kind of, in terms of the league, a little bit of a write-off. I don't think they've got an awful lot to play for, but if they can get some silverware under the belts, then maybe that's one that you can kind of let Mauricio Pochettino off with and expect him to build next season on. So, of course, going to the Etihad and getting a point, not many teams do that. So, in that regard, fantastic for them.
Yeah, 2 sides who are obviously in the title race with City. We want to start with Arsenal. Arsenal won 5-0 at Burnley. I've looked at their stats. They've now won 5 in a row, Arsenal. Before the winter break, they had 1 win in 7 before that. It looks like this time off's done them absolute wonders. They're scoring goals for fun, beating Liverpool, trounced West Ham, trounced Burnley, and they look to be picking up momentum right at the right time in a title race.
Yeah, and when we spoke about it at the start of the season, I picked Arsenal to win the league. And if you ask me right now who my bet to win the league would be, it would actually be Arsenal. And I think we spoke about the win they had against Liverpool a few games ago being a catalyst. Can they then jump on that and kind of let that spearhead their charge towards first place in the table? And since then, they've put a load past West Ham. They put Burnley to the sword at the weekend. They're getting goals from all over the pitch. Um, Gabriel and Salah in particular just look like the best defensive partnership in the Premier League by a mile to me at the moment, and probably in world football. And quite often, when you have a platform on a base like that in a team, it bodes very, very well for what silverware you get at the end of the season. And obviously, the only one that Arsenal really care about this season um, will be the Premier League, or that'll be the one at the forefront of their mind because they haven't won it for 20 years. And I just see them learning from last season. Mikel Arteta at the weekend spoke about competition within the squad coming to the fore now and allowing that to help everyone's game stay at a certain level. We can see the likes of Trossard coming in and scoring goals now. Havertz scored at the weekend. Um, Declan Rice has been imperious all season. And I just think it feels like it might be coming together for them more than it is every other team. Not being disrespectful to Liverpool, we're 25 games in and they're top of the league. So, of course, they've still got to be considered as one of the very top sides in the league and one of the favourites to win it. But I just fancy Arsenal now. What about you?
Yeah, to be honest, I think you're right. I think that they are learning from it. I actually a couple of weeks ago during that winter break, it's not a big statement, but I thought that they were fading and that this was just going to be the hallmark of Arsenal sides as they get themselves into situations where they're in a title race, but ultimately fade. And the sort of prior learnings of Liverpool and Man City would mean that they'd go on and run away from Arsenal. But I'm really impressed with them. And I think you speak about the Saliba and Gabriel partnership. They've also got Declan Rice, who's now sat in front of them and dominating the midfield that they didn't have last year. And it reminds me a little bit, actually, albeit United weren't in a title race last year. Varane and Martinez were getting like lauded as this amazing centre back partnership that had developed at Man United, but they also had Casemiro, who obviously came in and had a great season last season, sat in front of them. And I just think that Declan Rice move has been transformative for Arsenal. He's chips in with assists and goals now. He's also absolute legs in midfield. I think he's got the most distance covered for Arsenal. We all know what he can do defensively as well. So I think he's been a massive, massive signing. I think the fact that there's been big calls about they've not got the striker to score the goals to win them the league as well in the last few weeks has been put to bed because they've got 3 against Liverpool, 6 against West Ham and 5 against Burnley. So yeah, I think they're peaking right at the right time, and I really fancy them to go really, really close this year.
Yeah, that's the big point is the goals, isn't it? I think the first half of this season, a lot of it, we were, I mean, they were still good, but we're talking at the very top level. I don't think Saka, particularly Odegaard and probably Martinelli, were at a level they were at last season, and they still managed just to pick up the results or enough results to keep themselves right in it. And now you look at the last few games, Saka's got a couple of braces. Odegaard's back on the score sheet, getting man of the match performances. Trossard and Martinelli have got that kind of like we've alluded to, squad rotation where if one of them doesn't play well, the other one can come in. And that's without Gabriel Jesus scoring any goals or playing very much in recent weeks. So, like I said before, I think it's all falling into place for Arsenal to be in their hands. They've still got to go and do it, and they've still got, 13 games left to go and be better than everyone else. But I just feel like they might have more than anyone else on the running. I know Jurgen Klopp will have a lot to say about that, and so will Pep Guardiola. But yeah, they were my bet at the start of the season. I'm pleased to see that they're right in amongst it now because I think they're looking pretty unstoppable at the moment, pretty formidable.
Yeah, they've got Champions League football back this week. They go away to Portugal. They've got Porto, and then at the weekend they have got Newcastle at home. And I just think that it will be those games which last year, thinking back to like the Southampton 3-3 draw and those sort of things that Arsenal won't let happen this year. And it might come down to the game against Man City that they'll have between now and the end of the season for that. But one side we can't write off, Laura, as you touched on, is Liverpool. Liverpool won 4-1 at Brentford. I must admit, a fixture I looked at and thought potential banana skin. Brentford can be good at home. They've got Ivan Toney, Neil Maupay starting scoring some goals. We know what Brentford can be like. but Liverpool were absolutely ruthless. Got Mo Salah come back in and scoring, a bit of a blow for Jurgen Klopp in Curtis Jones, Jota and Nunes all going off in the first half or at half time. But they were absolutely brilliant, I thought, against Brentford. And as you say, I don't think they're going to go down without a fight for the title.
No, a vintage Jurgen Klopp team again. I mean, Endo, McAllister, and Jones was the starting three midfielders there. Do you know what I mean? On paper, it just looks worlds below like Man City, but he just gets a tune out of his team in playing certain ways. And one thing that we said in our group chat over the weekend that I think is just worth saying again. I mean, Mo Salah comes on, hasn't played in 5-6 weeks, been injured, been away with Egypt, comes in, goal, assist off the bench. The guy is absolutely inevitable and is one of the greatest players that we've ever seen in the Premier League. And that isn't an overstatement. I can think of not even a handful that I would definitely put above him. Probably Thierry Henry, Cristiano Ronaldo, but even he didn't have the longevity that Salah's produced over the last probably 7 or 8 seasons now. And I was asked whether he'd be in the all-time Premier League 11 for me. He absolutely would, and he'd be one of the first names on the team sheet. So whilst Liverpool have got Mo Salah, and whilst they've got Jurgen Klopp, which I know is only going to be for this season, they will be right in amongst it. And I just think it's uber impressive that they can do it with a team that, for me, on paper, just looks subpar to everyone else that's in the mix, i.e. Arsenal, Man City, in terms of household names. But they have probably got the best household name in Mo Salah. And like I said, if he keeps scoring and assisting like he always does and help blowing teams like Brentford away 4-1, then the world's their oyster. And again, it all contributes towards this 3-horse title race probably that we've got now that we've been talking about for some time. And it's really exciting going into the closing stages, knowing that it's not just Man City running away from it. And if anyone is dropping points like this weekend, it is Man City. So all coming together quite nicely. 3 teams banging it. All of them are very good and have got their own strengths. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, won't it?
It will indeed. And I just wanted to say that we're still waiting on news on the Nunes injury. Apparently, an Egyptian paper today did an article or released a bit of breaking news that apparently Salah aggravated the hamstring injury that's seen him out since the AFCON. And they're waiting on news for that, on whether he's going to be available, because obviously they go into the cup final this weekend against Chelsea, potentially Jota-less, Nunes-less, and Salah-less if he's injured, which alongside Curtis Jones and I think Trent still out would mean that Liverpool are severely under strength from what their starting 11 would be. But it would just be Jurgen Klopp, as you say, to get the tune out of the players that he does, Loro, to still go on and win that cup final.
Yeah, I think they'll probably still go on and win the cup final, but if that handful of players, particularly Salah, at this stage of the season is missing for any more than probably a week and a half, then that'll put a major dent in things because they need him firing, they need him at his best, providing the goal contributions that he does in order to make sure that they can either stay at the top of the level or still staying around Arsenal, Man City. So yeah, that'll be big news for them to know what the extent of that possible injury is to the hamstring. Hopefully for them and neutrals, really, it's not too bad.
Great stuff. Right, delighted to say we've been joined by Tomo now. Tomo, how are you?
Yeah, sorry about that, mate.
That's all
Car
right, no
trouble
worries.
can't be helped.
No worries at all. We've just been reflecting on the big boys at the top of the Prem, and just want to bring you in to talk about United actually. So timing's quite good on that one. United versus Luton. Obviously, Ten Hag's come out and said after the win that we're now in the top 4 race. He's accepted that after being a bit kind of dismissive of it up to now. Hoyland Brace, Kobe Mainu, obviously the positives, but just a little bit on their performance at Kenilworth Road.
Bipolar, completely.
Yeah,
They're really hard to analyse, really, because we seem so easy to play against, yet quite. And I suppose this is the one difference from earlier on in the season. We actually look quite good going forward now, with the likes of Garnacho on the right. I think sort of found a little bit of a position for himself. Rashford's he's not quite where he was, but he looks a little bit more confident. Hoyland, of course, scoring his 6th and 7th goal in his last 6 Premier League games. He's banging form, and that sort of the biggest example of that was that second finish, because I heard talk that he might have it just hit him and it went in, but absolutely not. I thought he completely changed the angle of his body position and guided that in with his chest, and I thought that was a fantastic finish. And he looks like a proper number 9 now, and at 20 years old, looks like the sky's the limit for him. So yeah, look, some promising signs going forward, but once again, we look so feeble, like on the way back. Casemiro looks like he's aged 10 years overnight. We look a little bit easy to get at. I think we conceded 22 shots against Luton, which is the 8th time we've conceded 20 or more shots this season, which is unbelievable. Because I listened to a podcast this morning about that game, and they said that in Jurgen Klopp's whole tenure at Liverpool, they've conceded 20 or more shots like twice in the Premier League.
Yeah,
And
twice ever.
Yeah, twice ever, which is a crazy stat when you think of how like Liverpool's style of play is supposed to be like chaotic and heavy metal stuff. But the reality of that is actually they're quite hard to play against, and they're quite hard to even get a shot against. But United, at the minute, we seem to be very easy to play against. And actually, I think Luton were probably good value for a draw. And obviously, if Ross Barkley's header in the last second goes in, then it's probably a fair result. Even though I do think United did miss a lot of chances, especially in the second half.
Yeah, Højlund has a chance for a hat-trick. Garnacho, Dalot, Bruno Fernandes all tried to go round Kaminsky, the keeper. I wonder if they've been told that was like his weakness or something like that, because Højlund did it for the first goal, and then Garnacho, Dalot and Fernandes did it. It might just be the style of United's play where they play these over-the-top balls, and so the keeper sort of comes towards them, so it's natural to go round the keeper rather than build up play and shoot him. But it seemed like that was a tactic that United were trying to do to go round him. But he had a really good game, and yeah, it's just typical United that after 7 minutes you're thinking, right, maybe this 0 goal difference, we can really make a dent in the positive frame of mind. And then 5 minutes later, Morris has scored, and it ended up being a shaky finish as well. And just one final thing, Tomo, that I just want to pick up on. I cannot believe Bruno Fernandes had a shot in that 92nd minute with a minute and a half to go of added time, with 5 or 6 United shirts around him, and he's had a dig or tried to put a ball across, and they've then gone and got that corner where Barkley clipped the bar. I think there's question marks about him as club captain sometimes anyway, just because of his personality and style, but that could have been disastrous for him.
Yeah, it could have been, but look, it wasn't in the end of the day. Luckily for him and for United, the header of Ross Barkley hit the bar and went over. So maybe we should reserve judgment for times when Bruno actually does cost us, because fortunately for him, he didn't this time. It didn't this time.
Indeed. Boys, I just want to look ahead to Monday Night Football quickly. So Roy Hodgson has left Crystal Palace today, and Oliver Glasner, who we touched on the last pod, is now in. I doubt he's in time for him to be in the dugout this evening versus Everton. But Loro, that's quite a big fixture now, Palace versus Everton, with how both are getting on in the table. I think both of those sides desperately need the 3 points.
They definitely both need the 3 points desperately. That's an understatement. Very similar stage of the season last year. Crystal Palace played Leeds, and Leeds had turned a bit of a corner prior to that and looked like we were in quite good shape to stay up. We were 1-0 up at half time, and then just before half time, Palace equalised, and then we ended up losing the game 5-1 at home, and it just turned everything on its head. And that was at a time where Palace were looking a bit precarious as well. And it looks very similar to me. Like, if Palace win this game, they'll be on 27 points. Probably going to need 37 to stay up. You'd back them to get 10 points, wouldn't you, out of the last 13 games? But if they lose, Everton will be back up above Luton. Luton are playing quite good at the moment, even though they're not getting the results in the last couple of weeks. And it just drags you into it. And then all of a sudden, each fixture you play starts looking harder. And as games go on, you wonder where the points are going to come from. So absolutely massive game in that regard for Crystal Palace. And Everton, I mean, they're even more in the woods, aren't they? They need every single point they can get. So must win for both sides. And it's the old-fashioned cliche 6-pointer, which I do believe in. One of them can get 3 points and stop the other one getting 3 points. So massive, massive, massive game at the foot of the Premier League tonight. And welcome to the Premier League, whatever your name is, Glasner.
Oliver.
Just on FPL before we move on as well, boys, we got City and Liverpool both double game week so far. How's it gone for you guys? I spoke about lots of people triple captain in Haaland. Was that something you both did alongside myself?
Yeah.
I accidentally triple captained Haaland earlier on in the season. I think we've had the conversation. So I've captained Haaland, but in a weird, perverse kind of way, him not getting any points is probably benefiting me because obviously everyone's getting 3 times the points and I'm only getting 2 times the points.
Yeah, I have triple captained him. I got Foden and Ake as well, and then I've got Diogo Jota for Liverpool, who I brought in, but that's going to be a bit of a disastrous move for me because he's now injured, and then they've got a blank game week, so I'll need to get rid of him fairly quickly. We'll move on to the Championship, Tomo. Premier Pod Cups change hands again as well. QPR won at Bristol City, a bit like London buses that. We waited for it to change hands for weeks and weeks and weeks, and now it's starting to pick up a bit of momentum and probably do what we were hoping the Premier Pod Cup does and change hands throughout the course of it. But massive win for QPR, who are towards the bottom of the Championship.
Yeah, really big win to be fair. I'm just having a look at the table now. They're 1 point off Millwall, who are just in 21st place. But yeah, weird for the Pyramid Pod Cup, really, isn't it? Because you got 25 games unbeaten, and I'm starting to think I'm going to buy the Southampton shirt because that's going to be my second team forever. And obviously, Bristol City go and win it and then lose it straight away. Liam Manning's admitted that they were piss poor, really, and it's a really disappointing result for them in their quest to potentially get in those playoff spots. They're at home, they're facing a relegation team. They need to go and win that game, don't they, if they want to be, if they want to have any sort of ambitions of going up. I mean, it's probably a little bit too much, really, for them. But yeah, look, exciting times for the Pyramid Pod Cup, and it's off to Loftus Road for us boys.
Yeah, indeed. I think that they've got an absolutely massive game, actually, QPR, coming up at the weekend. I think it might be against Rotherham that they've got,
At
who are
home,
obviously
though.
right down there. Yeah,
Yeah.
so they'll be looking for that and to retain that. But then they do go to Leicester. So if I was to predict the future of the Premier Pod Cup, I would say that QPR might retain it against Rotherham, but then lose it up at Leicester. But Lauro, this weekend, Leicester did something that they rarely do this season and drop some points. So just a little bit on that result for Middlesbrough. But also, do you, from a Leeds point of view, think that just cracks the door open a tiny ajar for a potential title tilt?
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Championship title race 2023-24. Let me tell you why. Let me back that up. The point gap between Leicester and Leeds is now 9. Leeds play Leicester Friday night at home. We haven't lost at home this season all year. So allow your mind to wander into a world where Leeds win on Friday night. The point gap is now 6 between Leeds and Leicester for the run into the season. Maybe even 5 if Southampton win their game in hand. All of a sudden, Leicester are playing their remainder games, or the remaining games, with something they haven't had to contend with all season, basically. And that's jeopardy. They're going into every game being able to play freely, knowing that they can lose basically 10 games in a row and still win the league. That is not possible now. The reason for it is because Southampton went 4,000 games unbeaten and Leeds have won 7 in a row. It might even be 8 in a row now, with 7 clean sheets in there. So fantastic Southampton, brilliant Leeds, fantastic Middlesbrough going to the King Power and getting all 3 at the weekend. And how does everyone fancy that title race if Leeds win on Friday? I think the door isn't ajar, it's blown wide open.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you, Laura. If you go and win on Friday, then that is door blown open, and that would make it so exciting, as you say, that bit of jeopardy where suddenly you go 1-0 down in a fixture where they probably come back and win 3-1, but they're 1-0 down and suddenly find out Leeds have gone 1-0 up somewhere or 2-0 up at home and cruising, and suddenly, as you say, it's this pressure on Leicester. That could potentially be the title race that we didn't know we were all getting, and that as
But
a
it
league,
makes it even
from a
more
league point of view.
frustrating. I always talk about August at the start of this year. Daniel Farker knew we couldn't start really until September. If we could have just had everything settled, I know it was a necessary evil to get through. But if we had got, I know ifs and buts, but if we had got one or two more results there, we could be within touching distance after this weekend, even after Leicester being by far the best team we've ever seen in the Championship. That's how mad this league's been. But for Leeds to win every single game in 2024 going into March is just incredible, isn't it? So what a game that is at Ellen Road Friday night. That'll be some atmosphere.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. Laurie just touched on the other sides as well, Southampton and Ipswich, Tomo, and both of them picking up wins away from home. So they're keeping their end of the bargain as well. So potentially Leeds might beat Leicester and say it's a full-blown title race. But if Southampton and Ipswich keep winning, then it's potentially a four-way race.
Well, Southampton have got 2 points behind Leeds with a game in hand. So obviously, if they win their game in hand, then yeah, it could be a three-way. Just a quick one, actually. I think we've been incredibly harsh on Middlesbrough here. They've just done the double over Leicester, potentially the best ever Championship side we've ever seen, and we've not really mentioned them. And okay, they are languishing in mid-table, but what a great result for them. And I'm just having a look at the stats now, and they had 5 shots, 29% possession. It seems like they're almost a better team when they don't have clubs, or when they do exactly what they did to Leicester, when they don't face clubs who do that to them. Because they haven't got that number 9 elite striker or the wingers like they did last year with Akpom and Archer and people like that. But they're really good at sitting in, soaking up the pressure, and hitting you on the counter-attack, and that's what they've done to Leicester both times. It's just when they go to like places like Rotherham or teams like that, and when they sit in, they really struggle. And that's probably where Michael Carrick's sides come unstuck this year, and probably will come unstuck in their hunt for promotion, playoff positions, really. Because other than that, they're quite good. They just need. I just think they could have done with signing like a Kiefer Moore style player. He would have been a fantastic addition, but obviously he's gone to Ipswich and done well.
Yeah. Congratulations to Middlesbrough on winning done the double over Leicester Cup. I'm sure that will serve their fans well, but unfortunately they're currently sat in the bottom half of the table, below the likes of Bristol City and Sunderland, who have already sacked their managers this season. Sunderland now twice for not being in the playoffs. So bigger fish to fry for Michael Carrick and the boys at the Riverside if they want any huge congratulations from us. But I will thank them for doing the teams at the top a favour.
Yeah, that's really patronising. But like, if you speak to Middlesbrough fans, which obviously I do because my missus is one, and I was up in Lancashire this weekend with quite a lot of season ticket holders, and I was asking him about Michael Carrick in this season because it's quite interesting. I think his managerial reign, because obviously last year it was absolutely fantastic, nearly got them promoted. This year has been completely the opposite, really. And I said to them, who do you think Michael Carrick will still be your manager next season? And they still think he's really highly thought of. And it's just there's lots of context around this season, loads of injuries, a couple of bad sales, not great buys that have counted against him. So be interesting to see if maybe a Premier League team picks him up, or whether because he's done quite poorly this year, or because Middlesbrough have done poorly this year, he stays on, and then they'll become promote. I'm having a look at you there, looking at me funny, but they become promotion contenders again next season under Michael Carrick's stewardship. What do you reckon, Laura?
I certainly don't think there'll be Premier League clubs slipping around just at the moment for guiding Middlesbrough to a bottom half finish. The context in which you just gave examples of injuries, a few poor buys and a few poor sales is fitness and recruitment, which needs to be on point and managers get blamed for and judged by. I don't think Michael Carrick should be sacked. I'm not saying that. I think he's shown promise as a good young manager, but he's had one good season and one, what you'd have to say at the moment, is a poor season, which can still be turned around. We'll judge at the end of the season. But if they don't make the playoffs this year, I think he'll be under huge pressure to start well next season, that's for sure. So I wasn't trying to patronise Michael Carrick. I think he's shown, like I said, good promise. But we also need to be balanced in our views. There's clubs in higher positions who have already sacked their managers for doing similar, and the proof will be in the pudding eventually. Having said that, if they win a couple of games, they'll be in the playoff hunt. But I don't see them making it this season, to be honest with you.
Well, one manager who certainly won't have Premier League teams sniffing around him in the summer is Michael Beale. He's left Sunderland today. Sunderland have actually announced that Mike Dodds is in for interim manager to the end of the season. That's actually the third time he's done that. He did it for a stint after Lee Johnson left, when Tony Mowbray left, and now Michael Beale leaving. But the one thing I would maybe credit Sunderland with is I don't think that they're now rushing into a decision, Loro, to bring a new manager in till the end of the season. I think they're going to put their trust in Mike Dodds until the end of it and then make an informed decision in the summer, where maybe the kind of Mowbray leaving the club and then Michael Beale coming in hasn't worked out. They're just going to take a bit of time to assess in the summer.
Yeah, I would credit them with making the decision to get rid of Michael Beale, because if you sack a manager after 8 weeks, you're basically putting your hands up and saying, we've made a massive mistake. So fair play for that. But on the flip side of that, they're 4 points off the playoffs. So, I mean, they're either saying they've got trust in Michael Dodds. Is that his name? The assistant manager?
Yeah.
To go on and be the man to take them towards a promotion again this season, or they're writing it off. And I certainly wouldn't be writing off a season where there's still 13 games to play and you're only 2 games away from the playoffs in terms of good results. So, interesting one. But I think we called it at the Birmingham one, and to probably a lesser extent the Sunderland one. I mean, both of them sacked good managers that are doing well and brought in really underwhelming ones that everyone other than seemingly the people making the decisions could see was a poor fit. And I mean, it's just been a disaster for Mick Beale. I mean, it looked horrible for him when Alex Pritchard just went, "No, I'm not playing anymore. Take me out of the contention for squads and sell me." And then he went to Birmingham the next day. I mean, when something like that happens, I think there's been something with Trey Hume as well. It just looks like he lost the dressing room within a month of being there. And unfortunately, the writing's on the wall when that happens. So I don't think he'll be getting a job in the Championship or above anytime soon. You might see him swanning abroad or something, or maybe take a chance in League One. But big club there, and a good set of players for the right manager to go in and do well with. But yeah, they just make some weird decisions, Sunderland, and hopefully the next one will be a better one.
I think the interesting thing, I think Michael Beale will go back as to be an assistant. I think his managerial career has been an absolute shambles, really, so far. And that little video clip on the weekend of him subbing off a player and the player going to high five him, I guess, or shake his hand to say, like, well done or whatever, and him completely ignoring him just sums it up. However inadvertent that might be, and however sort of bad it makes Michael Beale look, because obviously he might not have just seen him, but it just sums up that whole 8 games, 12 weeks, whatever it was that he had in charge. I think it was 12 games, wasn't it? And yeah, he just comes across like a pound shop Brendan Rodgers, and I think he comes across like it's like I am the savior, and and he doesn't feel like he takes players with him, and it's almost like this is obviously just from an outsider's point of view, and you're just looking at his press conferences, etc., and he comes across a bit David Brent-ish and just very much like, look at me, and the reality of those players are like, well, what have you ever done for me? It's a shambles, and I generally think now that he'll go back and be like, he could even be like Stephen Gerrard's assistant manager at El Atifak. I can't see him getting a good job in this country or in Scotland for a while, for sure.
Yeah, I think he's believed his own hype. If you go back to the start of last season, obviously he left Aston Villa and Steven Gerrard to take over at Queen's Park Rangers. And what happened was Aston Villa, I don't know if you can remember, were awful under Steven Gerrard. And at the same time, QPR started the season really, really well. They were like top of the league after like 5-6 games. Michael Beale was getting linked with Wolves, got offered the job there. And it looked from a neutral's point of view like this guy was the reason that Gerrard had all of his success in Rangers. So Michael Beale comes out and publicly turns down the Wolves job, doesn't he? He says, no, I've got business to attend to at QPR. Couple games later, realises he's got an awful deck of hands with a shit squad there, really, at QPR, in comparison to a lot of the top sides in the Championship, and then just jumps at the chance to go back to Rangers, and then it all falls apart, doesn't it? Because he's lost a little bit of respect from probably people in the game and the neutral that heard him say that he wasn't going to leave because he had business to attend to, and then just jumped a few weeks later to Rangers. And then when you're at Rangers, there's only one job, isn't there, to be better than Celtic, and he was probably miles and miles away from how good they were under Steven Gerrard there, and he lost all of the stock that he built. So the next job after that was always going to be a big one, and unfortunately, it's gone negatively for him. So rebuilding, at the very least, to be done for Mick Beale.
Yeah, definitely. Although, Tomo, you say that he probably won't get another job in sort of manager in English football, but these club owners seem to have like goldfish memories, don't they? Where someone in League One will just be like, "Oh, we'll have Mick Beale because he's managed in the Championship before." They just rinse and repeat these cycles of managers coming in and then having to sever their contracts, get a payout, and yeah, say he'll be back in a job soon enough.
I incline to agree with you there. Like, obviously, owners make terrible decisions all the time, but there is now enough evidence where, okay, he did okay, like Laura says, he did an okay job at QPR until he left, but he left, and that really tainted his reputation, I believe, amongst most football fans. And let's not let's have it right. Most football owners are football fans as well, and it's really tainted his reputation. And then obviously the Rangers gig, terrible. Sunderland gig, terrible. So there's enough evidence now to suggest that he's not a good manager. And I really find it hard to believe that anyone in League One or League Two would give him a chance. Like Gloria says, he needs a period of rebuilding.
Well, one man who's got a massive opportunity now is this Mike Dodds. As you say, if they haven't written off the season because they're still well within the playoff contention, they're going to give him to the end of the season. If he goes and gets them to the playoffs, even leads them to the dreamland of the Premiership, if they sneak sixth and go up through, then he'll probably in his own right, or even if he has a good end to the season, if he's been there years, done it 3 times as interim and he's a trusted hand, he might be one of those interims who suddenly steps up into management and gets the job full time. So massive opportunity for him. Before the news had broken that he was going to be made interim as well, Sunderland fan that I know had messaged saying just give it to Mike Dodds to the end of the season. So they've done that. That's probably a popular choice with the fans, and let's see how he can get on now between now and May and those last sort of 15 games, and see if Sunderland can creep into that 5th or 6th position and have a tilt at the playoffs.
Well, if you remember rightly, he guided Sunderland to a win over Leeds and West Brom in his 3 games in charge before they appointed Mick Beale. So obviously, he's got something about him. Quite often, these clubs have these kind of coaches who have been at the club for a long time and obviously live in the area. Like, they're what I'd sort of describe as those feel-good coaches who come in and make everyone feel good about themselves, but potentially in the long run might not have that killer instinct to fall out with everyone if he needs to. So, but yeah, look, interesting times. And I know what you're saying about they maybe need to take stock in the summer, but I agree with Laura completely. There's so much of the season left that they could still go up. It's crazy. They've had 3 managers now and they could still go up.
Yeah, we said last week, didn't they? They lose every single game, Sunderland, but are always in 8th or 9th place. It's absolutely madness. But Yeah, we'll see how they get on. Boys, just before we move on to League One, just a bit of sad news. Tony Mowbray has taken ill. He's going to have a period of time out. I think 6 to 8 weeks he's due to be off now with an illness. And I think Birmingham had tweeted it that was going to be the case. So just well wishes from everyone at the pod for him and hope he gets better soon. Let's move on to League One then. Tomo, Portsmouth back on top. Other teams dropping points around them, and they had what looked a tricky fixture against Reading because both were unbeaten in 5 and were two of the form teams in the league, but went and won 4-1 and cemented their place at the top of League One.
Yeah, Colby Bishop with his 16th of the season. 4-1 probably looks a lot easier than it did. They were 4-0 up as well, but I'm just having a look at the stats, and Reading had more possession, more shots, same shots on target. So, like you said, it was probably a difficult game, even though they battered them. So, yeah, that blip has completely been reversed now, and they look like very. The momentum's back with them and Derby to get promoted automatically. Yeah, so well done. Is it John Matinia?
Messina.
Messina.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, it's his first managerial gig, and he steered them clear from that blip that we spoke a lot about, and the fans giving Colby Bishop stick. Remember, he scored a goal and refused to celebrate because they're all giving him so much stick, and he's just gone and scored his 16th for the season there. They've won 4-1, and obviously back on top, back in form. Happy days for them.
Yeah. Terrible blip, wasn't it? I mean, I think at one point they were only 2 points clear at the top. They almost got relegated, didn't they, at one point? So, yeah, credit to everyone down at Fratton Park, loyal fans.
In second place are Derby, though. They won 1-0 versus Stevenage. I saw the Stevenage gaffer, Evan, saying afterwards that they were a bit hard done by down at Derby, but big result for them against a side who were in and amongst the playoff picture in 7th place, Stevenage. Side in 3rd place, Bolton. They dropped some points, actually. They drew 3-3 with Charlton, so maybe a bit of a light starting to show there for Charlton with Nathan Jones. They're actually only 1 point now inside the relegation zone because Tomo will come on to it in a minute, but Cheltenham won again against Port Vale. Darren Moore's Port Vale, another manager, a bit like this Michael Beale, as I say, rinse and repeat, get another job. But yeah, they won again, but Bolton dropped some points there. And Peterborough have lost 4 in a row now. A couple of weeks ago, looked like they were absolutely flying, picking up wins, starting to move towards the automatics. They went and won away at Derby on New Year's Day, and then got spun by Leeds in the FA Cup and didn't really recover from there. They've lost their last 4, so not going well for them. But Tomo, just on Cheltenham, a team that we've obviously spoken about on a few pods, and you've said that they're starting to move through the right way through the table and potentially going to somehow make the great escape and another 3 points at the weekend.
Yeah, and a good game as well. 3-2. 3rd win in a row. 1 point off safety now. But they completely deserved the win. Absolutely smashed them stats wise. 10 more shots than them. A couple more shots on target. He's doing an unbelievable job, isn't he? Because it was doom and gloom for them. But actually, just quickly before we moved on to the relegation sort of race, I wanted to bring up the fact, did you boys see Derby's new signing?
Oh,
Dwight Gayle.
Yeah.
They've signed Dwight Gayle until the end of the season, which I think is an unbelievable signing.
Yeah.
Because we like to speak a lot about the Dwight Gayle club and the players who are too good for the Championship, not quite good enough for the Premier League. Well, obviously he's a little bit older now, and he might be too good for League One, not quite good enough for the Championship, but I'm sure he'll be banging in the goals for Derby between now and the end of the season.
Definitely. League Two, boys, and the league that just keeps on giving. Stockport, top of the table, back in decent form, scoring goals, decide to go to Tranmere and get beat 4-0 by a side in 17th place, not in much form. Nigel Adkins not particularly got them going too much, Tranmere. They had 39% possession, yeah, and just spin the leaders 4-0. Unbelievable result for them, Tomo.
Yeah, this result completely bypassed me, but I'm just having a look now, and yeah, okay, they had 40% possession, but more shots on target, more corners. It wasn't like a smash and grab 4-0, if there could ever be such a thing. But yeah, fucking hell, that is a mental league.
And then you look at Mansfield, who last time out went and beat Harrogate, who were in the playoff picture 9-2. They decide to go to Walsall and lose 2-1. A Walsall side who are in 16th place, one position above Tranmere. So you'd have looked at those two games, been like Stockport, Mansfield, absolute bankers away from home, and both just get spun. Crazy league. One other game just to touch on, Wrexham won, Tomo 1-0 against Notts County. Steve Fletcher scoring again for them.
Yeah, that's a big win for them, isn't it? Obviously, that's the what would you call it? The National League derby from last year. Bit of a big rivalry. I think I spoke before about the documentary series, and the Hollywood owners of Wrexham asked Notts County if they could come on the documentary, and they just replied, "Fuck off," basically. So obviously a little bit of needle there. So yeah, big win for my second club, as Laura likes to refer to Wrexham, and yeah, onwards and upwards for them.
I think the top three is the top three now. I think that's it. I think in the next couple of weeks we'll see Stockport, Mansfield, and Wrexham cut the rest adrift. Those three will go up automatically, and then there is an almighty scramble from probably anyone 19th and up to get in those last couple of playoff spaces. Everyone's got half a chance there. Salford won again. Matt Smith scored a brace. Another good win for Kyle Robinson.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Lauren. Carl Robinson won again, 5-3 versus Barrow, who are sat in the playoffs in 6th place. He's just gone round there and completely transforms that side.
Exactly.
I was gonna say as well. I was just gonna say then that's a rare case of like a fantastic appointment from Gary Neville in the class of '92, but also a fantastic decision from him to take that job, because Salford, there was really only one way Salford could go, because they're a promotion contenders side with a promotion contenders budget, and they were really struggling under Wood. So, and they were okay. They may have had a slight nervousness about where they were in the table, about like going the other way relegation wise, but it seems like they were at their lowest ebb, if you will, when he took over, and he's done obviously a fantastic job. Don't know what Laura's about to say. Maybe 8 or 9 games unbeaten now since he's taken over. Okay, there's quite a few draws in there as well, but great appointment, and I think a good decision from him to take that job as well.
Yeah, definitely a good decision from both parties there. And I think if you're someone like Kyle Robinson, you're probably looking, like most of us are at League Two now, thinking that's a really good league that's getting a lot of attention. And the pathway is there to go straight back up to another big team if you do really well. Look at Luke Williams, who did brilliantly with Notts County in the National League and did fairly well in League Two as well. And now he's the manager of Swansea in the Championship. So football's a funny game. It can change quickly. But I mean, Salford are 19th with a -8 goal difference. They must have been awful before he went in there, because he's hardly lost a game. He's got the second top goal scorer in the league, and they're still in that position. So it's probably annoying for the Salford fans. They haven't got 1 or 2 more wins in there, because otherwise the playoffs are really on. But as it is, 9 points off, still with 13 games to go, 39 points to play for. I'm sure he's got one eye on it. But for him, probably just keep winning the next game and see where it takes you.
That's absolutely insane. They are 19th in the league, and I'm looking at them now thinking they definitely could sneak into the playoffs, and they're 19th in the league.
Yeah, 9 points off it.
Yeah.
They do go to Mansfield next weekend, who are obviously in second, but obviously, see, they are not unbeatable, Mansfield. So if he goes and beats them, then that might be a real sort of jump up and take account of the potential of Salford going up in towards those playoff positions. And then just one other fixture just to touch on again, boys, is Harrogate, who were in an 11-goal thriller against Mansfield. I say thriller, lost 9-2. They then went and drew 0-0 with Crewe, which just about sums League Two up, I would say. Move on, Laurie. I want to touch on Yeovil. So I was lucky enough to go up at the weekend with you and watch it, but just a little bit on the 1-0 victory versus Hampton Waterlooville, and then we'll move on to midweek fixture, please, against Western-super-Mare.
It's very much, for me, turned into the stage of the season where we're more bothered just about grinding out the wins rather than too much entertaining. To be fair, on Saturday it was horrible conditions. We've got quite a lot of injuries at the moment. Charlie Cooper's out, Reece Murphy's out, Jake Hyde's out, and although we've got a lot of good players on the pitch, Frank Nouble's kind of having to lead the line with Sam Pearson, who's more of a winger every single game at the moment. And although you can probably, if you're a neutral, look at the National League South and think, oh, well, Yeovil are a big side, they should smash it to pieces regardless. There are some decent teams, and you've still got to work hard to create your chances. So 1-0 against a team in Havant who are 23rd in the league, but actually are one of the best sides I've seen this season, both home and away. They beat us at their place. I was happy with the 3 points, and the gap's still 10 points, but Worthing just keep on winning in second place, and they're keeping us honest. So we can't let up. And tomorrow we host Western-super-Mare, who are obviously quite a local side to us. We beat them 3-2 at their place. That win at their place was actually the start of that 14-game winning spell that we had at the start of the season. So good memories there. It was also the sort of ignition, I think, of Jordan Young's form. Or rise to prominence as probably the best player in the league, or at least one of them. So good memories from playing them. It was boiling hot there at the start of the season. I think it'll be the polar opposite tomorrow. And if we get another 3 points, games are starting really to run out, aren't they, for the chasing pack? So fingers crossed.
Worthing must be looking, thinking, how on earth we ran into this Yeovil side? They've got Ollie Pearce up front, I think is getting close, if not already hit 30 goals for the season. They seem to win every week, but they're still 10 points off Yeovil, aren't they? And potentially Yeovil can extend that tomorrow night. So, yeah, they must be sick that they've ran into this Glover's side.
Yeah, shout out Ollie Pearce, actually. The Worthing striker, 32 goals in 31 games. He's got a goal every 75 minutes. The large majority of those goals as well have come since like October. I don't think he started the season overly on fire. He must have missed quite a few minutes because 31 and 32 should be a goal every 90 minutes, but it's 75. So there's obviously a spell where he was coming off the bench, maybe coming back from injury. The next highest goal scorer in the National League South is Sean Jefferson at St Albans on 16. So 50% of what Pearce has got. So that just shows what a player he is. And yeah, unbelievable that he hasn't been snapped up by a higher side, really. But yeah, what great player and a good little team, Worthing. I went to Worthing away this season. I liked the setup. One of the better ones we went to, play good football. And as you say, unfortunate they've ran into Yeovil this year, but surely strong favourites for the playoffs.
Think Pearce someone who Yeovil might have a look at if they go up to the next league, Loro in National League, like a bit like Macaulay Langstaff, where he seems to be rising up through the leagues. Do you think Yeovil look at Pearce and be like, potentially he could lead the line for us in National League?
I think a lot of teams will be. I hope Yeovil are. I think the word on the street with Ollie Pearce, because he's been quite good for a number of years now, Ollie Pearce at Worthing. I think the word on the street is, and this is quite often the case with part-time footballers at that level, is that he's got quite a decent job, like day job. So he's earning good money doing whatever he's doing, and then he's probably picking up X amount from Worthing every week. And it would only really make sense for him to jack in his actual job and move for a proper full-time gig at a club that are going to pay him proper wages. And as he's already, I think, 28, he's probably only got 3 or 4 years where he can probably produce at the level he is now, maybe a bit more than that. And then what? So I can understand that frame of mind, but at the same time, if I was him, I would just go and see how high you can get, because he's a goal scorer, that's for sure.
Yeah, indeed. Right, Laurie, we'll finish with you as well this week on this week's trivia, please.
There are only 4 players to make 150 Premier League appearances whose surname only contains 2 letters. So as an example of something that would be wrong, Charlie Adam, his surname's got 3 letters in, A, D, and M. It can only contain 2
yeah, I thought it was just
letters.
2 letters.
No, 2 different letters. So if your surname was Abba, it can have 20 letters in it, but there's only 2 actual letters in it. That would count. Do you know what I mean? So there are 4 players.
Yeah, with you.
There are 4 players whose surname contains only 2 different variety of letter that have made 150 Premier League appearances. I'm asking our listeners, can they name them?
Love it. Well, we will be back on Thursday where we will reveal the answer to that. But yeah, get in on the comments on Twitter and let us know your thoughts on that one, guys. We'll wrap up there. As say, be back Thursday, reflect on some of the midweek action, look ahead to the upcoming weekend action, and we might have a special guest for everyone. But we'll wrap it up there. Cheers, guys.
1, 2,